Hi guys, welcome to today's video. We have a special guest all the way from Washington, D.C., Amy Buttell of Lake Effect Creative. Now, Amy has a very interesting take on marketing for financial advisors. And our topic today is how to boost your business as a financial advisor by writing a book. But she really gets it. I call her a marketer who kind of masquerades as a ghostwriter. Her book that is available out there is Get Your Book Done in This Lifetime. But she has a wonderful tagline that she uses, which is, I want your book to show your life's work, not be your life's work. So I think you're going to find this interview absolutely fascinating. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Paul? It's great to be here.
Very good. We have negotiated through snowstorms and such like in the US in order to get this interview to happen, which is brilliant. But listen, absolutely delighted to have you on. You have a very kind of unique take on things in what I would call the financial advisor marketing world. Okay, in that, and I think I said this to you before. You are essentially a marketer, kind of disguised as a ghostwriter, and you can kind of explain that to me in a few minutes. How did you become this marketer disguised as a ghostwriter?
Well, I started out writing about financial advisors and for them in the context of like business to consumer investing. You know, so I was explaining, like writing a mutual fund column, writing about investing. So I got to know a lot of advisors. I got a lot of sources from the Financial Planning Association. And then at one point I wanted to actually be an advisor, and that didn't quite work out, but it kind of fed that fascination with making sure, you know, because there's so many people that need advice and who aren't getting good advice.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not giving advice, but I see myself as an intermediary to help advisors connect with people that need their help. Because I've seen situations where, like, my parents didn't have good advice and they've done okay, but they would have done better if they had better advice.
Right. No, absolutely. But your chosen medium to do this, and obviously there's a lot of mediums for marketing out there these days, your chosen medium quite specifically is to write a book and use that to promote your advisory practice, which I think is brilliant. And I will admit at the beginning of this interview that I believe that somewhere inside me, I have a book waiting to happen. Okay.
I think you do.
Has it happened yet? No, it hasn't. But I honestly believe I do have it. But anyway, enough about me. So why do you use, you know, the book and using a book as your kind of your marketing tool? Why was that the way you kind of went with things?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, I started writing books because I was asked to write books. That's kind of how I usually make a turn in my business. If a lot of people want something and it's in my wheelhouse, I'm like, okay, I'm that. You know, because I think we all have to be adaptable. But as I started to write books and wrote more of them, I became really taken with how they're substantive. They provide a lot of credibility. I have a friend who has a marketing agency for advisors in the US, and she said, Amy, when I got a PhD, nobody cared. When I wrote a book, all of a sudden, everybody's like paying attention and wanting to know what I thought and thinking that I was a big deal. And I've just seen how, you know, much you can put in your book about your methodology. You know, because a lot of advisors will say there's a lot of books, like, you know, how am I going to be seen in all those, you know, advisory books? I'm like, but there's no books about the way you do things.
Okay.
And I think that that is what really has the potential to cut what I call the trust curve. You know, because, you know, you and I know that a lot of this business is building trust with prospects so that they are willing to take the leap to have a conversation, become a client. And when you put everything out there, your methodology, you know, you explain your methodology, you use credible evidence, analogies, examples, personal experience, and anonymized client stories, that is very compelling. Because you're also helping people self-select in or out. You know, because like if, let's say I've written a lot of books about retirement income planning, because that's, you know, a big thing now, getting those pre-retirees to have a retirement income plan. But it's amazing to me how different all these approaches can be. And some of them appeal to some people and some of them appeal to other people. So you're basically building trust and also like telling people what you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So then that way, instead of, we all know, like we've all taken on clients, you and me, advisors who maybe weren't the best fit
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. And a lot of times that just doesn't end up working out well, right? Because it's not a good fit. So I think part of the benefit of writing a book is it helps kind of, you have to get really clear about who you're talking to.
Okay. And that's something we would talk about a lot is getting clear about who you're talking to. It doesn't matter what type of marketing you're doing. You got to be clear about who your audience is and what you're doing it. But if I'm a financial advisor and I'm busy, I've got clients, I've got meetings, I've got a lot going on. And you're saying to me, look, I should go out there and write a book. It's going to improve my marketing and improve my positioning. That sounds fantastic in theory. The practice of that, though, I'm sort of thinking, wow, how many hours are there in the day? I don't even see my family as we speak, so so what would you say to that advisor?
Well, I would say that, you and I have talked about this before, that you need content, right? To attract the right kinds of prospects, you need content, and not just generic content. You need content targeted at your audience. And there's no better way, in my mind. A lot of people do it backwards. They write all this content, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't add up to one big substantive thing. Whereas if you write the book first, then you have all the content, and then you can use it to drip on your audience. You have the book, say the book, whatever that is. Then you can cut it up. You can dismember it. You can have ebooks. You can have blog posts, social media. You can use it as a basis for maybe a podcast series or video. Because you already have all that content. It's already there. The fact is, to attract people, you need some kind of content. The question is, how are you going to do it? You can either do it over years, month by month, or you can sit down and say, I'm going to take a year. And I'm going to take a year and I'm going to be really deliberative about it. I am going to really figure out who is my ideal reader persona, who is the same as your ideal client type. What are those people interested in? What exactly is every little bit of my methodology? Because like I found when I wrote this book that laid out my methodology, there's nowhere to hide when you're writing it.
Right.
You can't sort of slide through that part, without anybody noticing. You have to, and I just feel that that's really valuable. It's a really valuable experience to help you define your practice. And it's also really valuable because a book is more substantive than a lot of articles or things all over the place.
I would certainly agree with that. I suppose as your tagline kind of says, though, don't make it your life's work,
right.
and so on. And I like that. And that makes sense to me. But in people's heads, because it's a perception thing, everybody thinks a book is their life's work. Maybe in the future I'll write a book and it'll be wonderful and that'll be my life's work. That's the kind of, and which is also probably the reason why I haven't written my book as yet, life's work and so on. So what would you say to someone who's kind of struggling with that? They're looking at it and thinking, that's a really big elephant. How am I going to eat that elephant? Yeah,
well, I would say, what are you gaining by waiting? I mean, if it's beneficial, it's going to really make a difference in your practice. I say do it soon, because it's not, first of all, it's never going to benefit you if it never gets done. If you don't have a plan, it's not going to get done. And finally, what you and I have been saying, like, you have to have a marketing plan anyway, right?
Right.
So my idea is you marry your marketing plan with writing your book. Okay, so there's not so a lot of advisors think the book is over here and what I'm doing today is here. Well, when you make them one, you sit down with your marketing person and you say, okay, I want to write a book. How can we make that happen within the context of the marketing plan? And it's exactly what I did with my own book, because I write books for other people. But, when was I going to write my own book?
Right.
So what I did was I made a plan. I had, there's 5 parts. So I thought I'm going to write 5 ebooks. And they're each going to be 9,000 words long, 9 to 10,000 words long. And each of them is going to have 3 or 4 chapters. They're 3,000 words long. So I made a very detailed outline, and I dripped out that content as I was writing it.
Right.
And then I put the ebooks out if people wanted to buy them, or if I could give them to prospects. So that was feeding my marketing while I was writing the book.
Okay. Yeah.
And then at the end, I put it all together and I have a book, and then I'm still taking that content and doing all sorts of slightly different things with it. But, people don't pay that much attention that they notice that, nobody's going to say, well, you wrote about that last year, right? I caught
so,
you.
So I like that idea. So you could be dripping the content that you're producing out even while you're doing it. So,
yes, there's no reason.
The book is a journey as
can't.
much as it's a destination, essentially, is what you're
Yes.
trying to say. Yeah, okay. No, I totally get that. And I think you said to me before, there's kind of 5 phases that people go through when they're trying to really get into sort of writing a book, for business purposes, to promote their business as a financial advisor. Can you give us an idea of what that looks like?
Okay, so it starts out with, and this is the first part of my book, which is start your book.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to start with what area of your practice do you want to grow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's number one. Like, that's where you want to target your book, to that part of your audience. Let's say you focus on, retirement planning, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe over time your practice has become more oriented towards people who are in the middle of their retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, and I advise, like, look at your analytics. Like, don't just, think that you kind of sort of maybe know what it is. Let's go into your CRM and look.
Yeah.
What's the average age of your client? What, are they, so maybe you decide, okay, I have a lot of people in mid-retirement. I need to get more people that are pre-retirees.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get more people that haven't yet done the retirement planning.
Mm-hmm.
So then you decide, okay, so that's who my target audience is. And I would encourage people to even think of, to really personalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Who is my ideal persona? Well, let's say if I live in the Washington, D.C. area. So if I was an advisor here, I might say, okay, I want federal employees, or people that are related to the federal government.
Right.
So, I might have a couple that are in their 50s and one of them works for the government and one of them's a lobbyist, because we have a lot of those, and they have kids that are grown and they have ideas about what they want to do in retirement, but they're not real clear, but they are kind of starting to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that would be my target audience. And then I would create an outline. That's start your book.
Okay.
So, you have your idea, you have your audience, and you have an outline.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get into write your book, which is obviously the biggest part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really easy to break down once you have an outline. You make your outline really specific. You can have sections too, like, the problem solution is a very easy sort of, presentation here, where you spend maybe the first part of the book talking about, like, the general problems, like, the retirement crisis in America.
Mm-hmm.
Then you might spend the middle of the book talking more about, the specific problems for your target person. And then the last part of the book would be like, what are your solutions to that? Mm-hmm. So you basically work through the book very methodically. You set up a writing schedule. Maybe you, like, I have someone I'm just started working with. It's not a book oriented towards advisors, but it's similar enough. And he's booking out 1 day a week.
Mm-hmm.
You can also book out an afternoon a week. You could book out, an afternoon a week, and then maybe once a month, take a long weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, just whatever you need to do, you just make that commitment to yourself. So that's write your book. Then there's finish your book.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've written the book and revised it, that's when, this is a lot of the part where people are, start to get kind of like, I don't know what to do about this. This is where you start to, need to bring in other professionals, like, copy editors, proofreaders, things like that. Yeah. Then the publish your book, it's interesting because that's kind of a wild west with, how do you self-publish, right? Because if you self-publish, you have to take care of all the details yourself. So you need to get, what's going to be your title? What's going to be how are you going to get the cover designed? How are you going to get it formatted? How are you going to put it up on Amazon? Publish your book, then the market your book. How are you going to get it out? And this doesn't necessarily mean, like, of course, wouldn't we all like to sell a lot of copies of our books? That would be wonderful, but that's not really, that's almost like a bonus. Mm-hmm. Because, if you can attract a couple of really good prospects and convert them, it will more than pay for what you had to spend to put the book together. Right. And then it will keep paying, as we say, it will keep paying dividends because you will keep using it. You will just not let it sit on the shelf. I have another client that what he decided, he got started on this idea by he he decided he wanted to mail a book to all the people in this income, you know, in a certain zip code in the Atlanta area. So that's what he's doing. He's working on a book and he's actually going to mail it out to these certain people. You can give it away on your website. You can give parts of it away on your website. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with it. But there is, like, just like with your financial advisory practice, you know, if you have processes that you follow, it's more likely that it's going to get done. It's going to get done on time, and it's going to get done on budget. Because it's not cheap. I won't lie to you. It's not, you know, I didn't have to hire anybody to write my book, and it cost me between $10,000 and $12,000
to self-publish, essentially. through Amazon.
Basically, because I hired a company that does the cover design, the interior design, and the ebook and the print book formatting. That was about $6,000. Then I had 2 rounds of editing and proofreading. That was another three and a half. Then you have to buy ISBN numbers. That's a couple hundred. You know, I had to get new headshots, you know, because you want a nice headshot on the back of your, so yeah, that's pretty much what it costs.
Excellent. As you say, a couple of clients, you have that paid back, no problem.
Easy, because, you know, that's the great thing about financial advisors and assets under management. Those clients keep on paying you as you keep working for them. It's not like it's a one-off. And I think the book, you know, I feel one reason I like to write books is that it's a way to build a relationship with somebody. Because when you're writing a book with somebody, it's, you know, you get to know them well, they get to know you well, you get to appreciate their work. And that's the thing, you know, when you put yourself out in a book and you approach people that way, I feel that it's more relational. You're saying, okay, this is who I am and what I do. Like, it's not like I have a secret sauce.
Well, on that, is there any shortcuts, you know, or sort of techniques you've kind of seen to try and break it down for people? I know I've read and seen some articles and podcasts about this. I know one person was advocating what I would call the postage stamp method, where, you know, you have all your post-its and your chapter titles and your detail under, you kind of lay it out that way to try and help yourself. I know somebody else talked about what I call the index cards, you know, kind of 3x6, and you use those and you have your titles, and help you kind of just to get your head around it, you know, to try and break it down into smaller chunks and make it more manageable. Is there anything like that you'd like to look at?
Yeah, I mean, I advocate the use of a chapter template. You know, I advocate you have your chapters, you know, let's say 10 to 12. I think I had 15 because they were like 3,000 words a piece, maybe 10 to 15. You know, and you can, you know, if you want to detail those out, whatever way works for you, like an outline works for me. For some people, it might be the Post-it notes, the index cards, or, you know, using something like Evernote, where you can just put links and notes and all sorts of stuff in there and have it all in one place, you know, on your tablet or whatever. But I really like a chapter template. And I ran into this idea when I was teaching undergraduates writing. So what I do is I basically, it's almost like an essay. It's an introduction where you have a hook. Okay. Then you preview what you're going to talk about in the chapter. What are your points that you're going to cover? And I usually say you want maybe 4, 5, 6 points in each chapter. So the chapter has to have a thesis, a main idea. It's a breakdown of the overall idea. Then you break that down further, and then you explain things in different ways. Like, you kind of weave all that in with, you know, you have an analogy. Let's say I'm explaining something like sequence of returns risk, which can seem like, well, you know, it's not that hard if you use it, let's say a chart to explain it. Let's say you use an example, you use a story. You say, you know, I had Susie and Bob, and they retired in 2007, right? And that was right before the financial crisis. And let's talk about what happened to them. And then you can also later say, well, this is how I helped them to make sure that that didn't end up as a disaster. You know, and the way we got around that was by making sure they had 2 years of assets and savings, so they didn't have to sell stocks during the bad time. So anyway, what I recommend is you just go through each chapter by using that introduction. You break down your points, and then you have a conclusion, and then you just go on to the next one. and you just keep moving. And because you've had a writing schedule, you blocked time out. Also, you want people around you to be supportive. You know, like I have a goal buddy in my business. Like I have another friend who's a writer, and we talk at least once a month about what we're doing.
Right.
And how we're doing. So it's great, you know, to pair yourself up with somebody who's going to support you. If you get stuck, you know, you hire a writing coach to help you, you know, or you hire a writer like me, which is what certain people do. And then you don't have to do as much of the heavy lifting. I mean, it's not a get out of jail free card, but it helps.
Well, I've also seen people say, well, listen, honestly, I kind of dictated most of the ideas and bits that I wanted, the anecdotes and so on. And I hired somebody else to tie it together and give it structure and format and make it all make sense. I suppose that's the other way to do it for the busy financial advisor. Yeah. Yeah.
And what I do with my clients when we work together in that way is usually we talk once a week or once every other week, you know, about a chapter.
Right.
You know, and if we do it that way, say every other week tends to be better because then I don't get behind on the writing. But, you know, we could have a book in 6 or 7 months, you know, if we have 10 chapters and you're going to tell me about a chapter. But the thing is, like it's still work.
Right. It still takes
for
thought.
You, the advisor, like, you know, people, I had one client say to me, I'm disappointed because I thought you were going to do it all. And I said, well, it's still your book.
Yeah, it's your book. Yeah.
It's your book. I mean, it could be my book, but I don't think you want to pay me to write my book.
No.
Right?
And on that, though, I think one of the biggest fears when it comes to writing, and I see this in our business, when I say to an advisor, okay, we need to look at some content, we maybe need to look at an article or a video or something of that nature to support your campaign. I often get the kind of rabbit in the headlights look where they're like, well, I haven't really written an article, or I'm not that comfortable with putting words on a page, or yes, in fact, I'd prefer to do the video because I'm quite comfortable with talking and so on, but I'm worried about my compliance department. I'm worried about how it'll come across, or you actually turn the camera on and they get very stiff, you know, and therefore, although they know the content and the message, they don't deliver it very well or in an engaging way that makes sense. Now, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when it comes to a book, the big fear is my writing style good enough? Is it engaging enough? Am I doing it at a level that doesn't make me look like a sixth grader or whatever, you know? So is there any advice you have for people on kind of getting over that insecurity barrier, I would call it?
Yeah, well, I would say, you know, back to structure. I think if you have ideas and structure and you just start doing it, you can always go back and rework it.
Right.
You know, I have a writer friend who calls it the word vomit, you know, just kind of get it out there. Maybe it's not very good, but get it out there, you know, and then, like you said, or dictate it if that's what you're more comfortable with, or, you know, like just tell somebody about it, you know, and record it. That's essentially what I do with my clients is they tell me, and then I have I have what they've said, and I have a transcript, and then I basically clean up the transcript. You could even do that with yourself. You could talk, you could get it transcribed, and then, you know, clean it up.
Something to work with. Clean it up. Clean it up.
Well, right. But then it's your how you talk. It's your voice.
Right. And that's the key. It doesn't want to sound like somebody else's voice or whatever it is. And let's be honest, there's any number of ghostwritten books out there. There's tons of them. I know there are. I mean, everybody from Donald Trump and everybody else in between.
He's not going to write his own book. Right?
No, he's not. He's written tons of books, and none of them were written
None of them were by him, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, like this is the political conversation, but you know, there's a lot of that goes on. And I fear for the busy advisor that probably knows realistically in their heart that a book would really help their business and their marketing efforts, but I fear for the time commitment they would see around that. You know, I even see that in relation to an article, not even a book, an article. You know, an article might only be a couple of hundred words, you know, so and I see the same challenge. So I suppose there's no way of easing that passing, really, is there? Well,
you know, I would say too is, you know, it's like, I don't know if I've made this analogy with you, but I think this time period is very analogous for books, what it used to be like with websites.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like 20 years ago, the question, or 15 years ago, do I need a website, right?
Right.
Because nobody wanted, you didn't want to spend the money, you didn't want to
Yeah.
write it,
Yeah.
really, come on. And then so eventually you had to have a website. And if
Right.
you were the last one, nobody cared about it, right? Whereas if
Right.
you were the
Right.
first one to have a website, wow, he has a website. That's really cool. We can find him on the internet, to which seems
Hey.
so quaint now.
Yeah.
You know, so I would say, look, if you want to grow your business in these times, content, you have to do some kind of content.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean,
Right.
you and I are on the same page with that, right? It's just
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
going to happen by magic. You know, and I
We
would
get a
say,
bit. Bear in mind that we're marketers and not financial advisors. See,
I know.
that's the
But
difference. So
financial
we get
advisors want to grow their business, though, right?
well, that's true. That's true.
You know, I mean,
And talk to me about, I mean, we mentioned a few different sort of tools. I know you said to me before that Google Docs is not the way to go when you're writing your books. And just maybe expand a little bit on that. I mean, Google Docs is great for collaboration. We would use it every day in our business. Well, why can't I use Google Docs to write a book?
well, what I've found with Google Docs is Google Docs isn't really suited for long form, because
Right.
in a book, potentially there's going to be like, let's say let's say maybe you've written and I'm helping you edit. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through the book as an editor, you know, or a
Mm-hmm.
proofreader or whatever, and I'm making changes and comments. And then you
Mm-hmm.
go back and are trying to fix things. With Google Docs is that those comments become more common. Google Docs kind of starts freezing up.
Right.
I can't even tell you the pain that I've suffered, which is why I've just made a fatwa in my business. No writing books with Google Docs. I'll do articles. I don't have a problem with articles, but it's just because you lose a lot of material. There's a potential for Google Docs to freeze up.
So mental note, don't use Google Docs, use
Don't use
Microsoft
Google
Word
Docs.
or some other version of that.
Yeah, and there are tools that are, you know, more suited towards long form, but I just tend to prefer Word because most people have it. You know, most people have Microsoft Office, right? It's not complicated. Most people know even if they don't want to write, they know how to use Microsoft Word to write.
All right. Here's another thing for me to throw at you. So what I've seen a lot recently kind of in the marketing world, not specifically for financial advisors, in the marketing world, is people will have a good book, for example, and they'll then, you know, create kind of a marketing funnel. And the book is essentially get the book for free. All that you pay is the shipping, which seems fine. And, you know, there's no money in that particularly. But the clever marketing piece appears to be the upsell on the back end, you know. So when someone's prepared to pay for the couple of dollars for shipping, you say, by the way, I'll give you the audio version of the book, you know, for $30, you know, added to your order. By the way, I have this 5-day mini course, you know, in relation to how to manage your retirement. You can get that too, and that'll be $97. And by the way, I'm going to email you for the next 6 months until you join my other course and my other things that I want you to get involved with. So that kind of model, I've seen a lot of that, and I've seen it work very, very well as well. But the lead, interestingly, is the book. Get the book for free, pay the shipping. So have you experienced that particularly in the financial advisory world?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I have an advisor that I wrote a book with, and this is kind of an interesting model. I have an advisor that I wrote a book with, and now we're revising his book because he's building a network of advisors that buy into his model. So we're revising his book so that advisors can add their own stories and then publish their own book. And he's developed a whole series, like I think 50 different modules of videos, video lessons associated with those. And I don't think he's selling them. I mean, I think he's mainly using them as a lead magnet.
Right.
You know, just to get people more interested in his methodology. But yeah, I mean, I've got products associated with my book, you know, that I'm hoping to, you know, workbooks, you know, like I have a Start Your Book in a Weekend workbook.
There you go. You see, there's the upsell. I like it. I like a good upsell.
And I have, you know, Write Your Book in 6 months.
There you go. Get it done. Get it done. That's what I say.
Revise your, you know, publish your book in a month. You know, but it's definitely possible. It really depends on what your objectives are. You know, I think if your objective is you want more clients, you know, those prospects probably not going to pay for ancillary material. So that's not as much your purpose. But maybe if you want to do more, you want passive income, You want maybe to do more coaching. You want to help people that are doing DIY, say. I'm committed to helping the DIY investor. I'm not going to give you advice, but I'm going to show you how to do it through all of my products.
Excellent.
And that might be a nice total revenue stream or a way to supplement, because maybe you could do that and then move people over if they got tired of it,
or if they had additional needs and therefore needed more hand-holding and therefore obviously are prepared to pay a higher premium to do that.
Exactly.
So on this, I mean, you have a very interesting view on the financial advisory marketing, industry as a whole. I mean, you've been in for a while. Two, you obviously speak to and deal with a lot of people. So if you were an advisor and you were to start tomorrow, you didn't have all your contacts and your experience and your books and all that sort of stuff. So you were starting kind of from scratch almost, what would you do? Like, how would you go about it, as an advisor these days?
Well, I think it's, every business comes down to building relationships, right? Whether you write, whether you advise people, whether you do legal, whatever it is, it's all about relationships. So, and of course, these days, a lot of those relationships are virtual because of the pandemic, right? You're not going out to, so I think it would be, I would be writing to, define who I want to attract as my clients. So I'd be defining myself that way, but I would also be seeking out those people, whether that's in, maybe Facebook groups or, I have friends as writers that they've created their own Facebook groups, like for people that, let's say I used to want to be a financial advisor. This is my frustrated financial advisor story. So I went back to school, long story short, and I was taken with accounting. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to do it all. I'll be a CPA and a CFP. Well, I failed the first part of the CPA exam by 1 point, but I also had a kid in college and I thought, I just can't afford to do this. But so let's say, because my idea was that I had gotten divorced. So I wanted to help divorced women to give advice, financial advice, because it's a very difficult time, very confusing time. And women are also faced a lot of times with the short end of the stick, when it comes to divorce settlements. So, I would figure out, why am I in this business? Like, who do I really want to help? And then find those people and write about them, so much of it. I think if you can identify your audience, then you're describing the problem that they have. Right. It was funny. I was on a podcast a couple of years ago when I used to do more fintech. And the guy who was interviewing me said, why should people care about all this stuff? It seems so complicated. I said, if it's your problem, you care about it. Right?
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
If it's your problem, you care about it. And I think that's really the way to get the hearts, minds, and eyeballs is when you know your audience cold and you're talking to them about their problems and then you have solutions, it's going to take a while. I'm not going to lie to you. You can't just jump in and all of a sudden, they'll be converting left, right, and center. But I think when you keep your eye on that ball of who do I really want to help and what are their problems and how can I help them in a different way? Like if you're a divorce financial planner, maybe you have that certification. You're a divorce financial planner. You've been through a divorce. You have a network of divorce attorneys and accountants and forensic accountants so they can make sure that your ex-spouse isn't trying to hide all their assets behind a rock or in, the Cayman Islands or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I just keep hammering at those problems. Like, you're divorcing, you're worried about custody of your kids. How are you going to pay for college? How are you going to, manage to ever retire when you just spent the last 10 years home with your kids so your spouse could build his career, right?
I love it. It's funny because it's something that we talk about a lot again within our business. We would say, in relation to LinkedIn, that people need to actually speak to the problems and challenges of their target audience. If they don't do that, it's not going to engage with them. It's not going to resonate with them. And if it doesn't resonate with them, well, it doesn't matter how much content you put out or articles.
Because that's you and I have talked about like why generic content doesn't work.
Right. Absolutely.
And I may sound impatient. And it's not that I don't feel sympathetic to advisors that are looking at this problem, but the fact is, at a certain point you have to do it or not grow. And, right. And that's your
Mm-hmm.
choice. Like, you don't have to write. You don't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But then, what are you left with?
I love it. So simple, and as I said at the beginning, you have a kind of a no BS attitude, cut to the chase. This is how it's going to work. It's either going to promote and develop and market your business, or it's not. If it's not, we're not going to do it. And
No.
I like that kind of attitude. It kind of resonates well with how we approach things as well. Which is brilliant. We're almost just out of time now. What's next for yourself and your business, and how you see things growing overall?
Well, I mean, this book, I feel like for me that even though I've written other people's books, that writing
Mm-hmm.
my own book has really boosted my own confidence.
Right.
And even if like I'm not selling a lot, I just have a bigger platform.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm, going to continue to develop, my own content, maybe for advisors who don't want to or don't have the money to hire me as a ghostwriter. Because I think the bottom line in this, just like, like I think I said at the beginning of this conversation, I see myself as, helping, or maybe when we were talking before, I see myself as really helping advisors connect with the people that need their help.
Right.
And I've been one of those people, right? My parents have been those people.
Mm-hmm.
And, the fact is getting good advice and getting on the right page can really make the difference between, like making it in retirement and not making it in retirement. So I feel like, the bottom line is I want to help advisors grow their businesses so that they can help more people and they can reach the people in need of their help. And so that's my mission, is to get my word out there so that I can help people help people.
Excellent.
I'm also thinking about extending, like I want to revise this book and make it for a broader thought leader audience, because I've worked with other, client groups. Like I've spent a lot of time working with asset managers and, fintech companies and technology. So I really kind of want to broaden this out so that more thought leaders, can see that writing a book is possible for them and that they don't have to figure it out by themselves.
Excellent. And listen, obviously we'll put notes and links to everything in the show notes. But if people do want to get in touch with you, what's the best thing to do? Is to look you up on LinkedIn, or where should they go? Yeah,
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. My website is lakeeffectcreative.com. That's really the best way. lecreative@mac.com. My US phone number is also on my LinkedIn and my website and all my emails. So I'm just happy to connect with people and talk and learn about their businesses. I just think that's, like you, it's fascinating. Really is.
And help them get their book done in this lifetime, not the next lifetime. There you go.
And we don't want it to be their life's work. We want to get it done now. Because it can help you. If you get it done now, it can help you now. And then you'll have it. And you won't have to do it again unless you want to.
Listen, Amy, thank you so much for your time and for jumping on with us today. It's been really great. And now I'm under pressure to go and focus on starting my book,
That's right. Well, give me a jingle. I can help you. I'll just help you, talk you through it.
Excellent. Listen, thanks, Amy, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Paul. Have a great day.